it can always start out good enough and then turn to fantastic. So if you're just on a podcast, you just want to do light edits or no edits and kind of learn your way, ease your way in, you can totally do that. Editing, for the most part, is pretty optional unless you make a huge mistake. You either got to start over or just whatever. So if you do make a mistake, because mistakes do happen while you're recording, this can be true for a solo show, interview show, any kind of show. There's 2 ways to go about doing this when you make a mistake. The first is you just take a pause. You just take a beat. So me, I talk fast and I mumble. Or if I can't get my thoughts clear, I'll just go, okay, hold on. And then I'll try again. So I do that beat, that a few second beat, because in recording, it's going to be a blank space. So an editor is going to know that something is wrong. Because if you just kind of give them an audio file and they got to listen to it, if they don't see it or they don't kind of recognize it, it just makes the editor's job easier to know where the mistakes are. And they say a blank spot in recording, that's the first place they're going to go to see what happened, and they're going to fix it. It's also easier to see it when you're editing notes for yourself for an editor. So like as an editor, I like good notes. A client I had this past year, she gave me excellent notes on where to edit and with time codes. So if you're going back to your podcast, you see that blank space, you know to make notes for your editor. And the ums and uhs. Should I edit out my ums and uhs? I mean, you can. It makes it sound a little cleaner. It maybe even cut down the time for a few minutes. Like if you have a time crunch podcast and you want to be a clear, concise 15 minutes, getting rid of ums, uhs, and oohs or whatever, just other random sounds your mouth makes when you talk, that can cut it down. But I don't think ums and uhs are necessarily a bad thing.
Normal part of conversation.
Yeah, everyone says and like in everyday conversation. If anything, it makes you more relatable. And remember, the P stands for personal. But if you want them removed, an editor won't be like, no, I'm not going to do that. It can be a little annoying as an editor, but I mean, I can't see anyone not doing it. Some people offer editing services as only getting rid of ums and uhs, which me is a sign of they're not a good editor and they don't really know what they're doing. So just keep that in mind. Christian, any other notes on editing in terms of making mistakes, how to make that easier for your life as an editor, ums and uhs, anything of the sort?
I mean, I think so far, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
I think ums and uhs are excessive, and I think as a result, if you do try to edit them out, the clips are going to be choppy. Now, if that's what you're going for, then, some YouTube shows and things like that are, they skip ahead and it has a certain humorous effect. But
I hate jump cuts.
Personally, I'm not a fan of chop cuts.
Yeah, I despise jump cuts. I do watch some content that has jump cuts, but it's just like no one talks like this. It's annoying. It drives me crazy. But sometimes I'll use ums and uhs to my advantage. Like, for example, right? A client wanted this portion of the interview cut completely because they said something and they just didn't like, or it was a little too, maybe controversial is a bad word, but it was a little too, like, cutting edge, whatever. For whatever reason, she wanted that 5 minutes interview cut. Now, that jump is going to be noticeable because you're talking about one thing and it's all about something else. Now, I will take an or an from 5 minutes later in the audio, copy and paste it, and put it back into that transition because an is kind of a natural transition. So it got rid of that jump. It got rid of that cut. It got rid of that something an editor would actually notice. Like, I listen to podcasts, I can tell what some cuts are. It's just like, oh, yep, they edited there. I can hear it. Most people can't hear it, but I can hear it because I'm an editor. So yeah, sometimes ums and uhs can be used to your advantage. And if you're cutting out portions of podcasts, you want to make it sound fluid, like there isn't a cut. And sometimes an extra pause, an or an can help you out there.